Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. My name is Jenny Max. I'm the city administrator here in Nisswa. And tonight we are here to present some initial ideas, planning work that we've been doing within the city. Just mostly want to engage in initial dialogue with everyone. You've probably received a letter from us, and part of that has to do with some of the work that we are looking at and that your property is potentially going to be impacted. The city council has spent most of this past year working with staff on long-range planning. And that involves not only our internal equipment facilities that we use, but also planning that involves external infrastructure, roads, sewer, potentially city water. We'll talk about that as well. And all those things kind of intermix together. And so when we get questions and conversations that come to us from developers with ideas and different things they want to do in the city, we want to have a mechanism and a way to talk with them about those different goals and plans that you might have. And so this is going to be kind of our first kickoff to some of those conversations. We're hoping to just give you very preliminary initial thoughts. As far as we've gotten, we want to get your input and feedback and work as much side to side alongside you as we can. Joe Dubal, our city engineer, is going to present our initial plans that we've put together, just concepts and the things that we're working on. Tom Blommer, our public works director, will be back here in a minute too to help Joe answer questions you have. And we hope this is just an open dialogue. Ask questions, give us feedback, whether it's tonight or anytime. Please feel free to always reach out to us and let us know what you're thinking. Our hope is the goal for the city over the next few years is to start to really do some intentional planning so that when you come forward potentially with ideas for things, we can give you answers and we can keep your time frame moving along as quickly as possible. Some of this, as Joe will mention, involves potential county involvement, state involvement, and that adds to the complexity. But if we can start those conversations now, hopefully that makes things a little bit smoother long term. So with that, we'll pass it over to Joe and go from there. Thanks.
As much as possible. Like Jenny said, it's just kind of a real quick overview. I'd rather have questions than presentations, but the city water, the municipal water, what we're looking for is the blue line all the way around. We've identified a preliminary area, and then the sewer system that she was talking about is for now is down in this lower part below 77 and 13, a little bit above north of 13. And then along with that, we've had some discussions and we're going to start some more discussions with the DOT for hopefully getting some support for Backage Road here. That'll go from 77 to Lower Roy Lake Road, and then from the Timberwood Church down here up into spot up here on 13. That's kind of what the program is. The deal, the first meeting we had was for the north section, and this one was for the lower portion, probably involving more of these units here, this property and over here. This section is kind of for the sewer is not the immediate part, but we want to set up a lift station 12 here, what we're calling it, with this area to handle the whole area. So in essence, that lift station would take the ultimate loads here, all the loads here, and they'd be pumped into here, directed up to lift station number 1, which is up there by that new bridge off Hazelwood Drive, and then over to the treatment facility. What did I miss? But like Jenny did say earlier, this is, up at about 20,000 feet. We're just starting this. We're just starting to get conversations with the DOT. And we're having some interest from some developers that want to potentially develop in these areas. So the city's kind of been playing a little bit of catch up. So the idea is to get a good planning going for what would possibly be sewer, municipal water, sewers, sanitary sewer and municipal water for the whole city. But with that, I'd like to take questions.
Joe,
specifically.
can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you explain a little bit more lift station 12 and the green lines on the map and what that means?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm sorry. What would happen here is the green lines here is the force main here, and then it's the trunk line here that would come across to service this area, and then sanitary sewer that's going to come up here because of some potential developments that we have that we like to serve that area. Plus, if we're going to do sewer and we're going to end up running a 6-inch force main up to handle this, we'd also want to pick up these units here that are on there, that are on septics now. So some of that's what's happening here with this tighter location, more central to that area. When I did do the study in the process of, I did look at being able to reach all the areas within here with gravity so that we don't have all the step stations that we've had in the past through the city. I think, Mark, offhand, how many step stations? Over 100. So with an area like this, you can see that, you know, all the topography comes down this way, comes down that way. When you're developing, trying to move things uphill with gravity is the better spot, but with that, you like to limit the lift stations to service a total area. Okay. Yeah, so again, any questions? It'd be great.
So any idea on the cost and what procedure would be for individual property?
It ultimately depends on where you are and how that would fit into development that was generating where the trunk lines may be put to. Are you located in an area that it could?
Well, yeah, so I have my property. So I see the proposed station and we have a brewery, which is to the brewery. My property is just south of the brewery. And it looks like we're talking about the sanitary easement, which would be the south and east of my property. How would I access that and property to the best of your ability?
Are we talking about where are you at here?
So that thing, what's the name of the brewery? Yeah, so here's my property.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We all kind of get some idea.
So you're located right here, correct? Right here. And looking at this earlier, there's probably two options to bring it. This is the force main coming out of the lift station, that 6-inch that we're talking about. Would have been to possibly come up the service road here. But that really, the same point, if I have to put something in, it's not going to help me to do it on the front of the service road because all your sewer's in the back. So the decision was kind of looked at to go up the back of the yard so I can, while running the force main through, I'd bring a trunk or an 8-inch sanitary sewer line through so that we could get up to this area and service it. Now, in particular for your area, if development was to happen here, which in all likelihood could, at that point, there would be the trunk line could be made to get, but yours is so close that a line could be brought over to service that one so that you could dump into there too. So for sanitary. So yours would not be a long shot to get sanitary ran after the initial line is put in.
See the road. Is that a developer road?
Well, this road is potentially there because there is some development that's they are looking at in the process of. And if that was to go through, that more than likely would be the road that would connect that development. Plus, eventually, when and if the backage road goes through, that'd be that connection to help loop things in through. There's no road by your property.
Is the road, is that a city paid for road, developer paid for road, city, county, state paid for road?
All yet to be determined. None of it is written down to how it's going to happen. You know, we're at that high level stage right now where, you know, more of a planning, laying out where things would be. It is driven by some possible development, but the idea is to start setting up where we could get assistance possibly fund for a backage road, say, that would service this whole area, take loads off the intersection for the residential areas as they develop. So, you know, that's one thing. Another part to that might be a trail that would go on that road too. But that, and then if you were looking at when we were looking back at as a whole, the other backage road up there, the same kind of principle is to bring driving traffic within the city too, as development opens up. Is that answering your question?
You really didn't give them a price.
Oh, I'm not going to give them a price.
Well,
At this level, it's hard.
can I?
At this level, it's hard to say it's going to be $5,000 or $100,000.
Well, and we can, if I can jump in, Joe, that's fair. We've talked about the high level costs, so we can talk about that. We haven't drilled down at all to what that split would be, because MnDOT plays a big part in this. So we need to talk with them. We're working on having those conversations. But I mean, we do have general costs that we can say. I mean, for that backage road, that's
The backage
1.5.
road, yeah, both backage roads, I think I have one at a high level cost of roughly 1.5 million, the other one at 1.7. That also determines whether or not there's gonna be a trail in there. With are we gonna do a road a certain width? Are we gonna make that so that we can have 3 lanes later for turning lanes? How's that gonna be made totally has not been decided, so.
So there we go. It's a very expensive road.
Mhm.
So how do what's the plan to move forward as the combination of property owners, city, county, state, to try to figure out how we build a $1.5 million road?
Well, we're going to start it out with some discussions with the Department of Transportation. Because in their long range plan from 2001, with the plan that they laid out, there is some accommodations made for putting in backage roads to alleviate some of the write-offs or the crossing intersections we have. And those have not been determined yet either, but they are going to be part of the discussion as we move forward. Their expectation would be to close off some entrances. If they're going to put in a backage road, it's for their safety and, for our benefit of moving traffic and development and everything else.
Totally tracking with that. I think probably everybody here is up to speed on this to some degree or another. But the trick is, how are we going to negotiate? How we actually get it done? And I'm curious what the team will be. Figure out how we negotiate with. Really, we start with the state, right?
Yep.
Because they're the ones with the deep pockets. They're the ones who, if this is going to happen, they're going to have to put a lot of money into it, right?
Yes, and also we'd have to show the benefit of it.
Yep.
So those discussions have not yet happened. They're just starting. And the whole idea of this is to be up here to let you know that this is how we're looking at things right now as a city as a whole. when you have so many moving parts, is the water, the road system, sanitary, all those interrelate. You run your sanitary down your roads and your water down your main roads for your trunk lines. So where are those trunk lines exactly going to be? Not for sure, but one idea might be here, but is that road written in stone? No, but we're starting those conversations.
Would anybody argue that?
If let's just say in the middle of our discussions with the DOT and they're planning on doing some participation, and we get to the point where all of a sudden somebody with property that wants to develop that property, but hey, their idea is, it'd work better for me if the road was to go here, or those are open solutions.
Yeah, all of that is, but essentially we need a backage road that we could run sewer down, which provides sewer access to all of those properties along that frontage road, and it solves the access point on the 371. And it gives the city a way to grow. All of those types of things. It really doesn't really come down to money.
Yeah, it always
Oh, yeah,
does.
absolutely. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, the trick is to work that out. And, it's hard to just say, oh, here's the idea. This is exactly how we're going to do it, because there's developers that play into this. There's the state of Minnesota that's going to play in it. There's the county that can play into it.
So what is the team to get this figured out?
What is the team?
What is the team? Who's going to do it?
The city staff and with the support of Widseth, we're helping them as a city engineer.
And certainly the city council, every step of the way. We've brushed over high level. We could talk about it some more, this idea of a water system, but we want to hear from everyone if that is something that would be beneficial, if that would be what do we need? So those are still very important conversations to have.
Yeah. And that's exactly why the meeting's called. And to get that first blush out there to everybody so they know what's kind of been in the works behind the scenes right now, and the city's been thinking about. There's people that have come to the city with ideas. And so the city's just trying to work to identify those and then work to a solution for it. Yes. Do I have all the answers? No.
Well, I'm against it. I don't need it on my property. My sewer works just fine. I don't need $1,000, $40,000.
We
It
can.
ain't gonna raise my property value, believe me. I'm totally against it.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve, too.
I'd be against it too at this point.
Those are the comments we're looking for right now.
Again, like what Mike said, it doesn't really raise the property value at all for what we have. We can't really expand our buildings anymore for what we have for building wise. Just after getting the letter, I kind of started paying attention to how much water I use. Maybe 10 to 15 gallons a day possibly that I use for water. I'm a one-man operation. If you start looking at the expense of, what it costs to have that service, it does not make financial sense to me. It just, I don't agree with it. Water for me either, again, 10 gallons a day does not make a lot of sense. Yeah, it's not, I don't know who else will say along that Smiley Road strip there, basically from me, which I have natural zones up to Schaefer's. I don't know who along there does or doesn't need sewer along there. I guess you'd have to look at like Fast Tracks or, what's the other one, Wally and Flo there, they just put in sewer systems recently. I think they have gray water, I don't know for sure, but I think they have some fairly expensive sewer systems. Again, I'm not up to snuff on that, but you'd have to see how they feel on the stuff too, as far as that goes. It's an awfully big expense for what people have already spent putting in the ground, and that's that, you know, to make financial sense for people, so. But for some of us that don't really use the system or would use it, it does not make a lot of sense.
I, I'm,
You
I,
gotta pay for the system going in, and you gotta pay for the system going out, all our holding tanks and everything else, that ain't free. I know it's gonna cost over $35,000 more to do that. 'Cause I did it in actually one other property, and they quote us one thing, the next thing it jumps quite a bit. You go there to argue the fact, you already got the pipe in the ditch. You already have to mine, so it doesn't do no good for me to argue. Here's gonna do it on hill.
I guess I have a question, you know, we just did on Hazelwood, we just did sewer system installation on Hazelwood, but we'll say Nisswa and Wood down that strip there this last year, what did it cost them for hookup? You know, what kind of price tag was for some of those businesses along there? I mean, if they had to hook up, I don't know the exact numbers on that stuff, I have no idea, but there was some expense involved with that to those individual properties along there. How much was that? I mean, that should give us an idea of what it would cost for us, we'll say on our side possibly, if it was to happen. What would those expenses?
So it's pretty easy. Right now, the connection fee, now this area is gonna be something different because there's a new lift station, some other expenses that'll be needed. But Hazelwood, I can speak specifically to that. So currently the connection fee for the city is $10,000. That gives you access to the system. And then you pay a contractor to physically make the connection.
So now we're back to this gentleman's question, what kind of expense are we involved? Now we're getting somewhere with some sort of expense that this system might cost. So now we're at 10,000 for sure plus hookup. So I mean, now we're starting to throw some numbers out here that make sense to people.
So the Backage Road, it will be a city street when it's done. What the cost participation of the county or the state, that is unknown at this time. We have a rough idea that the state may, I'll highlight the word may, pay for the construction if it justifies in their eyes, if there's enough intersections that are closed. They would pay for the construction, the city would be responsible for engineering and right-of-way acquisition.
So basically, depending what the state or city or whoever picks the tab up for that, you know, that's great, but you know, otherwise, whatever else, let's see, if you put the road in, the properties that abut it or whoever wants to develop that property, or would they be responsible for putting the road in otherwise? Or bring it up to city code, or how does that work?
Right.
I mean, I kind of know who's or what's going on, or we've kind of been alluding to development on the backside of the shop there. I'm not going to throw any names out there or whatever, but if that's to be done, isn't that property responsible for putting the road in if the state or whatnot doesn't pick that up, or how does that work?
They will have a portion of it. I couldn't tell you what their portion will be yet.
And that, you know, say the state doesn't want to do anything or whatnot, then we're pretty there, whoever puts the road in is responsible for that.
Right. If the financing doesn't work, the project won't happen.
Correct.
So,
And that makes sense.
so we've said that with all of this all along. So right now, this is a concept. This is showing where it would go and how it would look. The cost will be borne based on what size the road ends up being. You know, if the city council and the people in this community say they want a bike trail along it, obviously that makes it more expensive. So those details have to be figured out. Then we'll have an actual cost to work with. And the final cost is determined once there's actually a contract let. So if it all looks good, we'll let a contract, that final contract price will set what the final price is to the property owner.
Well, all that makes sense. It's just a matter of, like you said, you're way up here with stuff right now, just trying to see where things are at, basically, is what you're telling us.
Right, so a lot of it is, you know, you see the route that we're giving the road. So that's kind of the stuff we were looking for comments on. Does that route make sense? Is there somebody's property that impacts in a bad way? Sewer and water being available there, trying to find out if that's something people need, they're interested in. We know that there would be some that won't, you know. So for instance, on Hazelwood, you know, there were people that had sewers that were relatively new there too. What the city has done to help them out is say, you don't need to connect until you sell the property. Or we give you a period of time to finance that 5 to 20 years, depending on the project and the size of it. So you may connect right away, or you may wait that 20 years, or you may wait to sell. That's something that will be determined by the city council once the project is finalized. So it wouldn't be where we put the pipe in the ground tomorrow and you're gonna be ready to check with the city.
No, but essentially you're liable for it no matter what. It's like, well, here's the pipe at some point, whether you use it, you have to connect either A, B, or C. You don't have a choice.
So unfortunately, the way water or sewer work is it's a hard pipe like you're familiar of, and as soon as we run it in front of somebody's property, it makes sense for the majority. We have to charge everybody along the pipe at some point.
It's nice you can spend everybody else's money. That's just fantastic.
Well, it's not quite how that works, but it's a majority of people that request it, if that makes sense.
Can we get a vote on majority of people that want this? That's what I'd like to see.
Your vote is your city council. So,
We want everybody in that green. We need to go talk to them, get a sheet of paper. I'm guaranteed they're all gonna say no. So that eliminates the sewer over there. This really doesn't have to run further. No one wants to sheet.
I would say that's not quite true. But I understand that you don't, I understand the gentleman next to you don't, that's fair enough.
You want me to get you more name? Don't do that. I'll do your job for you. Go petition.
Well, we did reach out to everybody impacted. We do hope to hear from everybody.
I don't see a lot of them here.
I understand, and they could be watching virtually as well.
Because that's
And
something you want me to do. You know, without that effect on it. Because last time, when I was in Baxter, it didn't make a damn bit of difference. If I sat in the room, standing on my head, they're gonna do it no matter what nobody wants.
I wouldn't say that here, but I can't
If I get
say for
everybody,
sure.
You're the Schaefer's, pretty much. We're Schaefer's, that said if they don't want this, then they'll table this.
I would say the more information we have, the better to make a decision. And we're not going to make any conclusions today.
Everybody else is someone to oppose this.
I can't answer that yet. No, I wouldn't say that.
So it doesn't really matter what we say.
That's not true.
Well, it does. We can't guarantee anything today. We're just wanted to start the conversation. Other questions? Comments? We kind of glossed over a little bit the idea of the water system. Is that of interest?
Why is there a thought for the water system? Or why is that brought up? Or why is there a thought for the need for a water system?
I can tell you, okay, my property's on that. The way you're saying that nobody's going to improve it. I can't develop it because I'm restricted until they put in city sewer. So I've owned the property for a decade. Can't put a damn thing on it until city sewer goes in there. So, and there are other people on both sides of what you're talking about here. So, you know, I do understand your opposition, you have what you're using, you're enjoying it, but there's a lot of property right there. That the city of Nisswa needs to develop, quite frankly. Probably can't do it with on-site sewer systems. Why can't you go on?
If you look at the area that's outlined for water,
City sewer, city sewer.
if you look at the area that is outlined for municipal water, it isn't just because of one area. It's because of the city as a whole. And I think there has been some discussions about that a lot of the people in the city would like to have water. So there are going to be a few people that don't want it. I understand that. But, you know, this is something we're looking at. We're gonna do our report on it to find out, you know, the feasibility of what it would be. And the cost will be in there for how much it would be. And that'll be a decision that goes to to the council. It's not our decision. We have not made that decision yet. We're trying to lay out the best solution for that idea of having water so the city can take a good look at it and decide. But no, nothing's been written in stone. We're not coming through your property with a dozer tomorrow. There's a lot of time to voice your opinion, and that'll all be taken into consideration. And frankly, that's what we're here to hear right now. We're not here to say the project won't go forward, and we're not here to say that it will go forward. We're here to say, what's your input for it? You have your opportunity.
I would ask everybody here to, we're all probably property owners, concerned people with regard to some area along this, what we're talking about. But we do have to remember we are also residents of Nisswa. And Nisswa needs to grow, and there's only one place it can really grow. And I mean, if anybody can disagree with me, where does Nisswa grow? I don't see any. I mean, you blow up that map, show me any other corridor where Nisswa has the opportunity to grow. And I don't see it. And quite frankly, that property needs to be developed, and that means sewer has to go there. And probably, road too. And if we can get the state to be part of it, and the county to be part of it, and the city to be part of it, and the developers to be part of it, it's a very unique opportunity.
I'll be devil's advocate here. Why does the city need to grow? Looking at it on the other side of just looking at the other side of the coin, I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm not saying you're right, I'm just looking at it a different way. Why does a city need to grow? We look at why people have come up here over the years, it's because the city's been small, and it's not like the cities. That's why people come here. And I'm just, again, I'm not saying which way is right or wrong or whatever, but I've grown up here and it's like, wow, the changes have been good, don't get me wrong. But at some point it's like, holy cow, it's time to move out of this town and move north farther. And not all of us are residents of this town either. We have businesses here, but we're not residents of this town either. So another side point there, but it's just kind of interesting. I understand why people want to develop it, and don't get me wrong, I'm here to make money like everybody else at times, but it just, things don't always need to develop and keep moving on, or we're gonna, we lose our feel, I guess.
Well, some of what it is too, in particular, the road. The roads in the past here have come after things are developed and built. And so we end up with squirrel trails for roads.
Right.
And we end up with situations like the intersection at 77 and 371 that were just rebuilt, will probably get rebuilt again in not too distant future. We're trying to get ahead of it a little bit and try to figure out, well, okay, the growth is going to happen one way or another. So where do the roads go? How do we serve the most people with it? How do we make it make sense? So that was the purpose of this exercise.
I understand that.
So unfortunately, with any large project like this, some are more happy than others that how it's being presented.
Yes, I understand that.
So we're trying to make as many people happy as we can, I guess.
I also think the city's not growing. It's not going to stand still. It's either growing or dying. I don't know. That's the city from growing. Look at it. It's not going to die. So that we're trying to hold it back. before. You know, so, you know, I don't think we're gonna stay in front of the block, but we're also the people who decide how it goes.
No, you make some valid points there, Bill. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
The city also, not that it's still right, but the city, and people our services go required from the city. Try to maintain everybody's taxes. It needs to be smart. That's something like try and put on. But Joe is exactly right. It has to. Just what requires. Look at the city of Wayne. What's our real problem? Just from the city standpoint. Right.
How many years is this project out?
I would anticipate that some of the project may go fairly soon, and some of it could take years. I think there's a push to try to get the sanitary sewer first, to get that service in, and the lift station, so that when the developers do come, or a developer is able to come, they have something that they can rely on to develop with. And like we said earlier, you know, a lot of the times the development comes in, these step stations are coming in because people are building in little areas all over the place. And it was just an area that we see the development, so it's better to get in front of the curve instead of chasing it, you know? So the idea here is to put it out there, get an idea, get the location area, the area that we want to identify, put some conceptual drawings out, conceptual ideas out, get feedback. Along at the same time, we're going to be talking to the DOT as far as to help with the financing. Different strategies with different developers come in. If no developer comes in, there's no real reason for us to do it, is there? But if a developer does come in and they want to build, and you know, we do want to promote that kind of behavior in some things that we need for the city. So to be ready for them is be a little proactive is better than to have them dictate of, well, we're going to put another step station in here and we're going to put 4 more in over there. And now this guy wants to develop here. Pretty soon we're chasing lift stations all the time. So, you know, a little bit of forethought for the city and the planning. The city does have a planning and zoning for a reason, because highway business is more than likely going to build here. Residential will more than likely come in here. So, you know, we're reacting to it right now instead of being proactive and having some of this stuff available for them when they do come. Not ever, the city will know, the county, the city at some point will not leave septic systems just all over. There's a health issue with that. Those things will change. To try to get in front of that now, instead of waiting for it to happen and then trying to catch it, costs more money. If you can put some of that infrastructure in now, then when they develop, that'll certainly pay for itself later.
And there's no thought about ever getting down my Mission Road, the rest of the way. You ever look up?
Down by, we're,
The same level Mission Road.
help me out just a bit. No, Hole in the Date Drive is where we're headed to, where this goes right now. There is some idea that possibly some of that could get pumped into this lift station eventually. And the other thing is that the sanitary structure that's on Smiley Road right across from the roundhouse, I believe. That's at its capacity as far as gravity goes. So there's not, that can't be extended to add more gravity sewer to it. And unfortunately, you're probably at the right end of that. You'd have to pump into that structure if you wanted to. So gravity is less maintenance on the long run. It's less cost. So to put that in ahead of time now to serve the whole area, the other choice is to step station ourselves right into all these manholes. I mean, that costs everybody individually a lot more along the way. The reason we would run that line behind the properties there is because I'm guessing that the septic systems are back there. And when the septic systems get retired, there'll be a place to hook up for the sanitary, and it'll be gravity. You won't have to have a pump. Any other questions?
As far as cost goes with your sewer, that kind of figured out per square foot or per acre. Based upon, yeah, that whole yellow line, that's whatever, 1100.
We took that.
On square foot, or how do you calculate that?
Depending upon what funds come in, what grants happen or don't happen, how many developers are available that want to get in at the same time. A lot of those fall into what it would be. Is it going to be the ERC? Is it going to be area? We look at the volume, I guess, to start with, based on the planning and zoning. And those areas have specific areas, how much you can grow, how much you can build in certain areas, how much can be there. So those will be taken into consideration. Where's what do you need for trunk lines? You know, those things have not developed yet. We're not going to put a sanitary sewer line to every corner of the earth here. You know, we're going to make available so that it can grow. But there'll be a starting point, and then there will be costs that'll be associated to your hookup fees. There'll be costs associated to what you pay monthly for your service. All those will be played into consideration, but they've not been determined yet. The service area could get enlarged, could get smaller, you know, and we're way up here right now looking at this, and we're just trying to bring everybody along so that we don't have these meetings where we're 3/4 of the way through doing a project and then somebody comes in and says, this is the first I heard about it. So we want to kind of take that out of the scenario. And if you do have realistic questions that we can address, we want to do that. And all that plays into the decisions that are made down the line. I mean, everybody could go flat out no, and we don't do it. Or, you know.
The city just expanded the sewer system. How, you know, your ERC is, okay, how, I did not pay any attention, we'll say, to how big we expanded. How big did we expand the sewer system?
So currently we have about 650 ERCs available.
So just what, is there an initial guess on how much, you know, how many ERCs will be taken up by inside of the yellow zone essentially, or is there, what does, like, say, my business, you know, one lot take for ERCs?
At this time right now, I'm still calculating flows, total flows. So I wouldn't be able to put that into a number for you. But yeah, they'll be involved in the decision on how the costs are laid out.
So for your particular business, the way it's determined is everybody's a one. So everybody's house in town is a one.
Okay.
So you start there, that's a minimum. So if you're a commercial business, you get a water meter installed. And so we actually measure your flow to determine how many ERCs you are. So consider an ERC equivalent of a house. So if say you're a brewery, you're many times that of a house. So let's say it's 10. So if the connection fee was 10,000 for that one house, you're 10 times that. Same with your usage fee that you get every quarter. So yeah, I think I heard you say your flow is very small, so you would have the minimum of a one.
Right. I guess the reason why I'm asking that question is, we'll go back to the capacity of the system here now, because the system, does the sewer system have the capacity to service what the potential might be for what, development is, if that makes sense.
It will serve a large part of it. It won't be able to get all of it, but by the time we're talking about that next expansion, we're many years down the road. But yes, that will have to be figured out. Exactly how much over that would be, I couldn't tell you if this area represents 700 or 1,000. I don't know that yet.
And will it develop and build out in 20 years or 40 years?
I'm just asking some.
Yeah.
No?
Some maybe somewhat idiot questions, I don't know.
No, actually, perfect
My
questions.
next question is, does the city have the capability to expand upon the sewer system again from what we have now?
Short answer is yes. So what would happen is our current system, we use spray irrigation to get rid of the wastewater. If we were to expand again, as long as the regulations that the state puts on us don't change, that's always the wild card. But if they don't change, what we'll be doing is what's called subsurface discharge. And so what you'll see is that you're familiar with the mound system. It kind of works like that, only it's on a commercial scale. And so that'll allow us to increase our flow through our existing plant by quite a bit. I don't know exactly how much it would allow for, but at one time we calculated that the plant could ultimately build out to roughly 1,600 connections. So currently we have about 850 on there now. So we could probably add another 800 on top of that, what we have currently, I believe, but that I wouldn't guarantee that. It would have to be calculated out by an engineer.
Just asking questions is, we'll say development happens, and depending the density that, a development wants to build, imagine if you cut your density back, then you can't use I guess a septic system is certified by the state. I guess I don't see anything wrong with a septic system, as far as that goes,
So there's nothing wrong with a septic. They're perfectly acceptable. What they don't lend themselves to is density. So construction is very expensive. And if you're trying to do housing developments or commercial in particular, if you want to use your property for the buildings that are making you money, you don't want to sit and fill it up with sewer,
What are we allowed in the city for green space that we have to have? What's, say I have an acre of space, how much can I make not green?
Right there.
Brittany can help you with that.
So the short answer is I can't answer that. It depends on so many different variables. What are you doing with your land, or how many houses? Is it commercial? How much green space do you have? What's the topography? We have stormwater, we have stormwater management requirements. Depending on your topography, you might need 10 holding ponds, or you might need one. If you're putting in 30 houses or 5, it's going to affect how much green space you have. If you're doing, say, like a common interest community through an OSR zoning, you have to have at least 50% green space, and it has to be one parcel. So there's so many different variables, I can't really answer it.
Right, and that makes sense, but say you break something down to, say, an acre and a half lot, we'll say commercial, what do you have to have? Is it like 50% green space that you have to have?
I can't answer that. Depending on your zoning, you're allowed a certain amount of impervious coverage. Depending on your use, you're required different things. I'll just pick on We recently did a development, or we were considering a development where they had tons of topography change, tons of wetlands, tons of problems, but it was a housing development. I want to say in that instance, the entire property, 13% was pervious or impervious. So that equals 87% of green space-ish. And it's obviously going to change based on zoning, use, type of development, all those things.
That sounds like the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to say that the most extreme case that we have allows for 90% impervious, which would be like your central business district where you literally just have your building, there's no grass. To the opposite end where you're in the OSR district, which I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe you're allowed 15% impervious. So it's quite a dramatic change between zonings.
In other words, if I come in and figure out where I'm at, essentially I can figure out how much green space I'm allowed.
If you can tell me where you're at, what you're doing, show me a survey, all that good stuff, I can do that. But ultimately, an engineer is going to be your best bet as far as if you're trying to lay something out, because your stormwater management, I'm not going to be able to answer for you.
Okay, I guess why I'm asking this is you put a sewer system in, or you take away your septic system and hook up the city sewer, essentially you should be able to develop more of your property. I guess where I'm going with this.
Not necessarily, because your septic system is below ground. I guess you could, just simply because of setbacks, you can't be driving over tanks. But I wouldn't say that it's like a make or break situation, depending on where your septic system is and your use and all that. It's all going to play into your use of your land.
All excellent questions, and those are all the questions we need to kind of move forward with ideas. So
You're gonna move forward after I let you know. Where do you live?
I only do what I'm directed.
Okay.
Part of this too, we mentioned at the earlier meeting was, our ordinances play into this, obviously. If there are things that you would like the city to consider, the option is always there to initiate a conversation about how our ordinances are structured. We are about to complete a recodification, so our hope is that it will at least provide an opportunity for ordinances to be clearer, and then from there we'll work to modify them or update them on a regular basis so that we're asking those questions to ensure that the rules really pertain to the goals of the community and our comprehensive plan. So that's what we'd really like to do. And so there's always an opportunity to have those conversations. As we talk more about the development, our ordinances certainly play a role in that. And we want to have our regulations really meet the broad scope of the city, not just specific to one or two projects, but hopefully if it's a benefit to many, then we'll make those adjustments as we need. I think that was the only other thing we touched on earlier. So yeah, if there's any other questions, and feel free to look at the maps. We'll be here if you have any other questions, and certainly reach out to any of the city staff. We're here to answer questions, and we will keep you updated as we move forward. And like I said, feel free to reach out to us anytime. Thank you.